And that's because our digital workers are, it's a better description, because robotics sort of indicates it's doing just the same thing over and over again, and we're very different to that. So our digital workers, or our software, is trained to do multiple processes. So, in the morning it could be performing, something for IT, password resets. In the afternoon, it could be onboarding new starters for HR. It could be doing, all sorts of different things. So actually, a digital worker is a better description of what we actually do, as opposed to a robot. And what the digital worker is actually doing, it's accessing systems much in the same way as a human would. It can work with APIs and things like that from an IT perspective, but also many of the problems that we see that we were trying to solve for was there's this myriad of systems within an organization, and there's typically large gaps in how they talk to each other. So to get work done, often a company will have to plug the gaps with the only other resource they have, which is humans, which is to allow everything to carry on going. Now, often those sorts of tasks are very mundane. It's around getting data out of this system and putting it in this system. It might be something like just reconciling invoices. That's the sort of work we're talking about. So and we designed the digital workers so that potentially you could use a digital worker as your third sort of sourcing option, rather than have to use humans to do that. And so there's a cost saving in not having to have humans do that. There's also some benefits in, the digital workers don't make mistakes. And the idea is it frees humans to do better work, more complex things. So that's when you hear RPA, that's what RPA means. And the digital workers, it isn't a physical robot. It's, it's a piece of software. You're also going to hear the term intelligent automation. So if what I've just described is what we'd call RPA 1.0, intelligent automation is moving to that next stage. And the next stage is, rather than just dealing with structured data and rules and do this, and the digital worker doesn't think, just does what it's told to do. The next stage, when you hear about intelligent automation, that's about having the digital worker connect with other technologies. So it might be analytics, might be machine learning, AI, cognitive services, IoT devices. That allows them to do more complex things and opens the door to different types of processes. And you're going to see in some of the examples that we'll bring to life later just how that technology works together. So they're the two different things. And quite often people may start just with what was RPA, and there's a lot of value to be derived from that. I think sometimes with intelligent automation, it can become a little bit daunting. There's all these different technologies. How do you work with those? And just to reiterate again what Trevor had said, don't worry about that. The purpose of this is we have an operating model called the ROM, Robotics Operating Model. That is a framework of best practices, if you will, that help guide you into how you can embed this capability into your organization. How you identify processes, the sorts of people you need in the organization, the roles they need to perform, how you decide the pipeline, what the priorities are, why you should do something or not do it. But the main thing is our partners can help guide you with that. That's where DKBS can really come to the fore and support you with our support as well. We work with all as a tri-party. So don't worry about that too much. I'd encourage you to obviously engage with someone like a DKBS early, because they can help you write, if you're going to go out to an RFP to bring this capability in, they can help you write that document in a way that you get the right type of responses from people, that you understand what their ability is and how they can help you. Many of the documents for people to respond to. So don't worry about any of that aspect, but I did want you to understand maybe some of the terms that you'll hear. So on to the next slide. If we look at this, it says like 70% of organizations have selective process automation, which I've just described, as a key driver for digital transformation. So whilst it's, that's from Wall Street, McKinsey was the main people that looked at this. So, that is true, and many already realize then that this type of capability can help them, but many have failed. So whilst lots of people have gone on a RPA journey, haven't seen the results that they should have got, and especially as you look on the other side there, if people that do this correctly give themselves a massive competitive advantage over companies that aren't doing it. And the challenge that most have had is that they haven't started from the beginning with a view that this is a strategic asset to the business. Whilst people will start small and grow, you do need to have an idea of the end in mind, of what good looks like. And having, from a senior C-suite overview maybe of support, is both from a top-down and bottom-up approach to make it successful. Quite often we see silos where people just start with this type of automation in a department with no real plan of what happens after that. And they start small, but because they haven't got a vision of what good looks like, they struggle to scale. And they struggle to scale because it's hard to get budget. The people they train in one area aren't in the other business areas, so you've got a skills issue. It should be, like a center of excellence almost that you're trying to create that allows you to grow. So it's very important to start off with that capability right from the start. So Blue Prism is very much designed for sort of large enterprises. That's, we were born out of a bank, Barclays Bank, so we were designed from first principles to be fit for a tier 1 bank. So that means scalability, security, control, auditability, all of those things that are really important to a bank were built in the system as a core. Now, they were important to a bank, but they're important to an energy provider. They're important to many industries, especially regulated industries. And so that's a key thing about Blue Prism. And it's also designed for large enterprises. And how do we deliver the transformational business value that we're talking about that really moves the levers for the executives and the strategic ambitions of the company? It's these three things. So the first thing is we unify the workforce. Blue Prism, the idea of the digital worker isn't to replace the human worker. Far from it. It's about connecting the two along with technology. So you've got these three things. And the idea is to understand the type of work that's being done and who is the best person, whether it's a human or a digital worker, to do that work. And as I touched on before, there's types of work that is just not creative, that's, as we say, just cross-referencing invoices, dealing with moving data, really mundane tasks that humans hate doing. And actually, they also make mistakes when they do that because they happen to just look at things, and it's very, very easy to make a mistake, especially at scale, whereas a digital worker is perfect for that type of work. They can do it 10 times faster than a human, and they'll never make a mistake. And actually, the humans love it because it frees them up from having to do that themselves. We've seen that with many of our customers. And then that frees up the human worker to use, human behaviors, sensing, perceiving, decision making, the ability to work with and talk with the customer, whether it's service or in sales. And typically that's much more rewarding. It's also a higher value for the business. So that first, very important that we actually connect those dots together there. And the second pillar there around transforming journeys, the reason many organizations that have gone on the path with RPA hadn't had the success that they wanted is because they get bogged down in this first tranche of automating tasks. All of these are important. Tasks, processes, operations, all can be automated. And the value increases as you go up that chain. Now, some people just think that RPA is task automation, which is literally having a digital, and in this case, where it's used, is almost like a robot that's doing something over and over again that helps an individual. Same way a spreadsheet, if you've got a macro on a spreadsheet helps you, that has value, but it's limited value. If you can start to connect, automated tasks with automated processes, which running through how work gets done, then that has a higher level of value to the business. But when you start to really join all of the dots together and you start to automate right across the entire enterprise, but you start to design work processes and workflows for getting work done based around this, you know, do we need a human in the loop here or not? Because if we don't, let's not design that way. It can be much quicker, much faster, more accurate, better for customers. But there'll be certain processes where it does make sense, or elements of that. So as you grow and develop this wider across the business, much more holistically, that's where the value comes from. And that's pretty much what the third pillar is talking about, which is scale. You know, it isn't worth the cost and the time to just do this on a small scale inside a department. You'll get some short-term benefits, but then the costs of infrastructure, of people, you won't be able to make it work. So, you know, this is all about scale and starting with that in mind. You'll start small, don't get me wrong. Nobody starts with thousands of digital workers on day one, but they start with a plan that, while starts small, shows like where they want to get to and the value and the potential that can be achieved. And, you know, as partners such as DKBS can help you with that. And so from a scale point of view, that's where Blue Prism really sits. You know, if you look at some of the companies we work with, you know, they're in the hundreds, some of them in the thousands of digital workers. So that hopefully give you a bit of a flavor for what you're going to see in more detail from John. Just to finish off, you know, everybody is interested in, you know, third-party validation, as it were, or what the analysts think. The Gartner Magic Quadrant, obviously, is one of the key go-to reports that people look at. Blue Prism's been a leader in that quadrant for 4 years, and in the latest one was the biggest mover of all the leaders within that quadrant. A lot of that's due to an acquisition that we've had go through in March of this year, where we became part of the Ss&C family. So Ss&C is a $5.6 billion company based in the US, who is the largest hedge fund administrator in the world, and have a lot of complementary technology to Blue Prism around AI, machine learning, business process management. And they're looking to bring that and integrate that with Blue Prism to allow us to answer a lot more wider business problems. So we expect, with the R&D and the budgets that's being made available for that, is that we'll continue to move to the top right of that leaders quadrant year after year, which obviously gives all of our customers and the people we talk to, you know, extreme confidence that the solution will be fit for purpose for years to come. So thank you for your time. We hope that gives you a little bit of context to what's going to come now. And with that, I'd like to introduce John Bailey. John.
Cheers, Greg. Thank you. Hi, both, all three. Yes, my name is John Bailey. I'm a solutions consultant with Ss&C Blue Prism. What I'm going to do is to take you through, first of all, the portfolio. You know, what's in there, how it kind of works for you, and then at the end of that, I'm going to show you a video. It's kind of it's the video of the whole of the sort of stack that we have for you. We'll then have a short break, hopefully with some refreshed food, and then we're going to go into, okay, so utilities. We're going to focus on utilities because I had presentations for public sector, and I also had presentations for telco, but you guys probably won't be interested in those two. So, so Blue Prism has been going for 20 years, as Greg said, and we were very much focused as an RPA vendor, so robotic process automation, and you know, obviously one of the top vendors during that time. But recently, Ss&C acquired us, and it gave us a way of really, rather than simply thinking about RPA, thinking about how Ss&C's own products and RPA kind of really fit together. So what you're seeing here in these 4 pillars really represent the same thing that Greg was talking around about, you know, how we understand how to move from task-based automation through to process-based automation through to operations-based automation, and what it means for customers. And so for our customers, that translates into these four intelligent automation platform pillars, all underpinned by the Blue Prism Intelligent Automation Platform and Operating Model. So those words, operating model, actually make you realize that we aren't just trying to talk about software here. We're talking about technologies that change the way that people work. We are a software editor, we are a software vendor. So we have no right to talk about really how to manage the way that work changes. And so to do that, first of all, we have our own methodology to implement our software, and that methodology stretches into every part of the portfolio that I'm going to show you. But we also have learnt that not only through the years of implementing our own software, but actually also through our partners' experience. And we've worked with pretty much all of the major system integrators, as well as the local system integrators, as well as some boutique firms as well. And that then gives us this message that we want to talk about. So our solutions, first of all, really help create and improve journeys. Now that's an interesting word, journeys. Because what we're trying to do is really understand, discover what journeys there actually are in businesses, journeys that customers go through, or internal journeys, for example, how orders are managed in maybe an order to cash type environment, or purchase orders are managed in a procure to pay. So that sounds quite sort of universal, let's say, across all industries, and it deliberately is. But we also understand that businesses are in the business to actually manage how they operate in terms of their operations. And so a lot of those journeys are those operations journeys, like a customer journey or a manufacturing order journey, or a complaint journey. These are all journeys, and what we want to do is, first of all, to create or even optimize those journeys that exist. And the way that we do that is when we think of essentially accelerating the way that those journeys actually work. And we do that through this capability, this automation capability. And just to reiterate it once again, the automation capability, what that is all about is mimicking how humans work. So if a human goes to a login screen on their PC, that's what we are going to mimic. We're going to go to that login. If a human then types in the user ID and the password, do you know what? That's exactly what our automation is going to do. It's going to retrieve a password from a secure store and put it in where the password, username and password needs to go. Right? So we mimic, using the user interface, exactly the way that humans work, even down to things like decision making. The effect of that could easily be that we accelerate, we just go faster than humans, because we can go up to the speed of the machines that we're actually operating with. And sometimes, let's face it, if we're going out to the internet, that might be quite slow. So we need to make sure that actually we are coping with the speed of these systems that we're actually accessing. We also want to transform experiences as well. And now what this means is that, well, everybody works, let's hope it, on behalf of customers. And up to now, things haven't necessarily been the best experience for customers. I mean, I think we'll all agree, even in the utilities environments, that sometimes we don't always provide the best levels of service. Now, we can improve that, absolutely, with Blue Prism and our intelligent automation platform as well. But let's not just think of it as customer journeys. There's a number of actors in a business, and customers are, if you like, on one side. On the other side, typically, are suppliers. Where do we get our things that we transform to sell to our customers? Where do we get that from? And so we probably need to be managing our suppliers just as well as we're managing our customers. Our suppliers are going to have the same sort of requirements of experience as our customers are. So that's an interesting thought. But there's one other actor in this, and that actor is the employee. Right? So the employee is the person that delivers from supply to customer. That's the person who transforms whatever it is that we're doing. And we want to make sure that our employees get the great customer service. Why? Well, we all know that employees are actually changing just as much as our customers are changing. And we can't always expect our employees to be happy, let's say, using a mainframe green screen when actually they never come across these things in their life ever. So why present that to them? So these are some of the ideas about what we want to try and achieve. And the last is to unify operations. Because I think Greg said it really well. It's the last thing we want to do is to get rid of humans. But the thing that we do want to do is to let humans do what humans do best, and let the automation do the things that automations do best, which is to follow processes, maybe to do repetitive things as well, but to do them accurately 100% of the time. So here's a few quotes just to back up those 4 stories. The first here around creating journeys by our good friends IDC, who you'll be hearing more of later on. And what this is really saying is to get the most out of RPA, organizations really need to first work on which processes they've actually got, and therefore, what are the candidates for automating them? We're going to talk about that in a moment. But that's a really, a lot of times we just don't know what those processes actually really are. So with this, we have 3 areas that we talk about in Create/Optimize. The first is mining. So mining is all about not digging stuff out of the ground, but digging into the computer systems that are running to find out informative information, data, if you like, about what's going on. Typically, there are 2 types of mining. There is process mining, and that process mining is very much akin to understanding what journeys there are. I'll go back to those examples. What journey do you have between order to cash? You're going to have journeys there that an order number goes through. Procure to pay, same idea there as well. Record to report, there again, finance ones. Onboarding, that's an employee or a recruitment example. Maybe in utilities, let's say, things like switching from provider to provider, that's a kind of journey. Customer onboarding, that's another journey. Meter reading, that's another journey. There's all sorts of journeys that you might find in that business. And within the computer systems, you're going to uncover where information about those journeys actually lies, and that's across multiple different systems. What we're able to do is to discover those and then to analyze those journeys. For example, who knew that after you pulled in a load of data about one of those journeys, that it came from one place to another, and then went to a 4th team, and then back to the 3rd team, to the 4th team, and back to the 3rd team, and so forth. Nobody knew this because nobody could visualize it from that transaction point of view. All they saw was, hey, there's a load of work in team 3. Hey, there's a load of work in team 4. They didn't realize that one transaction was going backwards and forwards in this ping-pong type effect. So that's what we're able to analyze with some of our process mining capabilities. Another example would be, well, where are there time or bottlenecks going on? Where can we see that things are slowing down in the process? So we can, once again, through the analysis tools that we have of the data that's behind those systems, we can find out that kind of thing. Because these areas, ping pong, bottleneck, and others, demonstrate where there may well be candidates to automate. The second part of mining is what we call task mining. And this is where, rather than analyzing journeys, the journeys that might take days, weeks, even months, you're analyzing what's going on a desktop of an individual. 1 individual, 5 individuals, 10, 20, 100, up to you. But they spend 8 hours a day doing work, and what you're able to do is to actually understand what they're doing and break that down into the actual processes, actually physically, that an individual or those groups of individuals are actually doing. Okay, so once you've actually done that, you might then want to decide who's doing it best. You know, how can we define, how can we improve that? So out of that task mining, or simply by going to the subject matter expert, what you're going to start to do is you're going to start to understand the best path. Or maybe you're going to understand all of the paths. And we name the paths. Likely you're going to have, let's say, 100 different paths that this team does. Probably 5 might be the happy path. Probably 95 might be the unhappy path. And that's the point where, you know, to actually properly automate it, by doing this capturing using task mining, you can really understand that whole variability of the way that people do their work, compared to how the subject matter expert thinks it should be done, or indeed how it's described in the operations manual written by your Lean Six Sigma people. Then what you're going to want to do is to put that into a flowchart. Document it in Word and then put it into a flowchart. And again, we've got tools that actually make that happen. Because once you've put that into a flowchart, you can then start to, let's say, develop that so that we can then replicate, mimic again what the human does. Right? And we build this into what we call our process studio and our object studio. So we're essentially building the workflows within our process studio. And if need be, what we might be able to do is to then access different parts of artificial intelligence. Because, you know, that's what humans do. They make maybe decisions based on, you know, some documentation, or maybe they're making decisions based on images that they see, or even videos these days that they see. And by using additional AI, we can actually start to enhance those journeys and take out the sort of repetitious nature of what people do. And here's some people doing it. South African health insurer, you know, they're saying that they've reduced the amount of time things are happening by 75%. Faster build processes and development time by using different parts of our application, by different parts of the system. So accelerate work. 75% of decision makers need to change the way they work in order to deliver on digital transformation goals. Well, we're not saying that, that's Forrester. And so by when this accelerate work concept is all about changing and optimizing the way that work is done. And I'm going to repeat this again, automating processes, enabling decision making, using, you know, leveraging artificial intelligence as well, and maybe simply just reading paper. Maybe that's all that needs to happen in order to process documents intelligently. Again, that's something that we can do. Who's doing this? Again, 3 more examples with numbers and percentages that are high numbers and high percentages. You know, faster clinical times trials in Pfizer's case, you know, becoming increasingly important in core operations, so say Eversource. Transform experiences. Well, like we know, building a good customer experience doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design. So what are the things that we do here? You know, we're connecting customers' end-to-end journeys. We're empowering employees themselves, and we're innovating on design. And so just moving through to who's doing this. So here's an interesting one. If you've got a contact center, you will recognize that manning that contact center is really important, getting the right amount of people. And one of the important metrics is how long a call takes. That's called average handling time, AHT. Now, using one of our solutions called Service Assist, this company here has been able to reduce AHT by 87%. That's unbelievable, unheard of type numbers. And that's because what we can do is to, first of all, when we have identified and verified the customer through their ACD and their IVR system, So first of all, that's happened automatically. Secondly, what's presented to the agent is a screen with 360-degree view of what the customer actually is probably going to be calling about. Is it because of their last order? Is it because of their last meter reading? Is it maybe their payment that they missed? Or anything that comes from many different systems, right? So what we can do is to pre-fetch that information before the agent even speaks to the customer and actually have on the screen the reason, most likely reason, that that customer is actually calling. If you do that, then the agent speaks to the customer, understands what their request is, maybe does a bit of upselling as well. What we're able to do quickly, rather than in series, as in go from one system to the next system to the next system to the next system, right, do that in series, do it in parallel. So actually, let's say it's a change of telephone number, and that's probably in 15 different systems. We can then dispatch 15 different, we'll call them digital workers, off at the same time to update 15 different systems, which means, of course, so we're not waiting for this thing to happen in series, we're doing it in parallel. And then at the end of the call, there's typically what we call wrap, after call work. And then what we're able to do is, because the system understands the context of that telephone call, it can write the wrap typically to the CRM system automatically, right? So there's no wrap. So suddenly, that whole length of time between the agent being able to accept the next call is dramatically reduced. That's why you get to the 87%. And lastly, unify operations. You know, an enterprise-wide governance controls framework is critical. All right. So basically, what they're saying here is controlling what humans and digital workers do is absolutely critical to business. And that's exactly what we do here. You know, we're first of all obviously monitoring the end-to-end. Right. So just imagine now we have put in place that automation to reduce those bottlenecks, to finish that ping pong. We want to measure that we did it right. So that's what our monitoring tool does us. And because we know which worker, be that human or digital, did that work, we can prove that our automation has actually solved that improvement in end-to-end, that improvement in customer journey. Notice what I'm not saying is, oh, we've returned some hours to the business. But no, we've transformed that journey. So go back to one example. What journeys have you improved? Well, I've improved my customer journey, made it much simpler, much faster. Who's going to be happier? Well, customer's going to be happy. Employee's going to be happy. That's what you're going to be measuring. Order to cash. I've now recognized my cash, the cash that's going to come in, procure to pay, the cash that's going to go out. I've recognized that 15 days earlier than I used to be able to. Go and talk to your finance director about what that does to his liquidity in his business. He will say, Jesus, that's massive for me. Hours returned to the business? Don't worry about it. It's neither here nor there. It's the journeys that the ones that you improved. And furthermore, what we're able to think about going forward is not just orchestrating robot work, get it done, making the most out of the platform, but actually orchestrating also human work as well. And we do that by the introduction of what Ss&C have been able to provide for us, which is a BPM system, which we never had before. And with that, we're able to then do things like forecast, simulate, understand where things might go wrong in the future, and come up with mitigation strategies to improve. And this gives you the name of those BPM systems, Chorus. That's the products that actually come from Ss&C. But either way, we in Blue Prism work with other BPM providers as well to provide exactly the same kind of business outcome that you're looking for. So now I'm going to name some of these products in those 4 areas, and you'll see these come up again in a different sort of slide. So this is, if you remember, the kind of what the customer gets out, what your customer actually gets out from automation. Now, if we transform that into what it looks like within Blue Prism itself, we've got our Discover area, Design area, and Deliver area. So if you notice those 3 colors. And so our products then sit into this particular, these 3 categories of process intelligence, so process mining and task mining, feeding to our product called capture, which is our method of either receiving the task mining data, not the process mining data, the task mining data, and actually then drawing that in front of the subject matter expert. Or you don't need to use that arrow. What you can do is to simply have capture on the desktops of the subject matter experts, recording and optimizing the way that that process actually works. Once you've done that, you can output what we call a process definition document. Now, a process definition document is a key part of the way that we govern the platform. The governance structure is all associated with the robotic operating model. So this robotic operating model tells you how to manage the platform itself. You'll notice then, you get the process definition document, which is a Word template, but filled out with all the screenshots, with all the clicks, with all the username and passwords hashed out so that you can't actually see them. And then that then can also output to the design studio. So the design studio is our way of essentially building processes with absolutely no code. We don't need an IT person on the scene here at all. All we need is somebody who knows how to use something like Visio, because our tool is very much like Visio. So again, when you think of Lean Six Sigma outputs, they're pretty much all done in Visio as well. So you could almost say, well, can I compare the Lean Six Sigma version with the version that comes either out from Capture or that I've built actually in the design studio? And absolutely you can. And once you've built it, then you're going to follow the proper software development methodologies, which is I'm going to build it in my test environment. I'm going to build it in my dev environment. I'm going to move it to my test environment. I'm going to test it in my test environment. When it's tested, I'm going to move it into my prod environment. That's what we call a software development lifecycle, and that is completely and utterly supported. Because the last thing you want to do, let's say, for instance, you're writing a process that deals with, let's say, credit card information, is the same person who develops it to be the same person who tests it to be the same person who puts it into production. And the reason is that they might have developed it, but they're a bit fraudulent on the side and scraping off credit card information and putting it into an Excel spreadsheet that they're emailing it to themselves at the end of the day. That's the last thing you want to do. So you want to segregate these duties, which is absolutely the key requirement of the robotic operating model. Once it's running in the control room. Right? So there where we have the control room doing all of the scheduling, doing all of the making sure things are running correctly, actually capturing any exceptions, any things that weren't captured by the 95 unhappy paths that you should have built within the processes. And then, obviously, you're going to use the results from the control room to go back to, and that's hence that long arrow, back to process intelligence to then say, well, have I improved? Now that I've got my digital workers doing the work, has this actually improved things? A couple of other things then on the right-hand side. We've got a number of capabilities. The first is called Interact, and it's augmented by a product from Ss&C called UX Builder. Interact is a way to get other people involved in the platform. So other people, we mean, rather than a controller in the control room or designer in the design studio, you can have anybody who's got a browser access and they're given the right credentials in order to fill out a form and then do something with the platform. That might be, go and launch a process on the platform with this input data. Or, mid-process, I need to give it some more data because it's made some decision calculations and come up with this that the human needs to actually provide input to. Hence, we call it human in the loop, right? So it's to get humans involved at the start of the process, in the middle of the process, maybe even at the end, well, I don't know, send an email saying this has been done and here's the evidence behind it. So those are the kind of things that we can do. Decipher. Now this is a really interesting one because this is all about reading paper documents, intelligent document processing. And there's two capabilities here. There's our capability in Decipher, and there's Ss&C's capability in document automation, DA. They can do structured forms with handwriting. Decipher can do structured forms, it can do semi-structured forms. So things like invoices, kind of semi-structured because it might be 15 pages long and we know there's going to be an invoice number somewhere and an invoice date somewhere and probably subtotals, tax, shipping and grand total. But you know what? They might be anywhere in this document in these 15 pages. So that's where we talk about semi-structured documents. And it also has a component for completely unstructured documents that then uses a technique called natural language processing so that you can ask questions as well. Service Assist is our capability for contact centers and more than that, just reaching out to customers to improve their customer experience as well. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about Decision, which is our capability to actually make decisions based on a trained input to the process, all wrapped around by the robotic operating model. And you'll also notice the digital exchange coming in at the bottom there, actually providing pre-packaged processes, objects, and other assets that might be useful to you. Okay, so that's all I wanted to talk about in terms of the portfolio. But to actually show it in action, let's do that. And I'm going to just pick a small video here to show you. It's a 15-minute video. Then what we'll do is we'll have a small break, and then we'll come back and talk about utilities.
Rachel runs a contact center for her company and has chosen to use Blue Prism digital workers to improve efficiency and performance. Blue Prism digital workers can do anything a human worker can do on a computer, often using the same user interfaces. They're also faster, never take a break or get sick, never sleep, never make a mistake, keep perfect audit logs, and are highly secure. That said, Rachel's contact center is quite large, so how do we know where to start? What work should the digital workers be doing in the first place? This is where Blue Prism Process Intelligence enters the field. System log data can be loaded and transformed as needed with ease through the Extract, Transform, and Load tool or through pre-built connectors. The no-code interface makes it fully accessible and easy to use, and once the data is ingested, it is automatically organized as a process model that can be immediately visualized and analyzed. Color coding makes it easy to identify bottlenecks. In this example, Rachel can see that the billing review is taking significant amounts of time. By switching the line of thickness to represent the time length of events, we can clearly see that the billing review is a bottleneck, which can be further investigated in the bottleneck tool. Here we can see that the billing review takes over 30% of the total time. Rachel's team can then simulate improving the bottleneck from the previous view and predict how many hours back to the business this would yield. We can also look at a frequency distribution of the paths taken to complete a given process. In this example, the straightforward happy path occurs most often, but the second most common path takes significantly longer, as does a few others. Perhaps this is due to repeating the billing review, or perhaps it has to do with the agent answering the call. To understand why, we can set those paths as a filter and drill down. The breakdown tool lets Rachel's team easily analyze events. In this case, we want to identify which agent is assigned to these longer calls, and we can quickly see that most are handled by Alex. We can also see that other agents don't take as long. With no coding and just a few clicks, we've gone from ingestion of the data to discovery. But why is Alex taking a longer route? Maybe he doesn't know the right method, and some targeted enablement could have a large return. Or perhaps Alex excels and is assigned to the more difficult calls? Either way, we now know we want to set up a task mining recorder on his machine to learn more. To get the full picture and better understand automation opportunities, we need to be able to visualize and analyze some manual steps a user does on their computer that don't generate data or logs. This is referred to as task mining, and it provides the granular detail required to build out automations. When doing these recordings, it's critical to protect user privacy. Templates allow us to define when to record, what applications to either include or exclude, what should be obfuscated, and what text should be masked. In this example, we're setting up a recorder for Alex as well as some of the other agents to look at specifically just the applications they're using to do these processes. As Alex does his work, shown here sped up, the the actions he takes are logged. By deploying recorders on many agents' desktops and recording for several days, Rachel's team can identify details it would otherwise miss if only recording a single agent or doing interviews. With the data from the recordings, we can apply deep analytics. By graphing the potential gain against the complexity, for example, we can quickly determine the best candidates for automation. We can also identify projects we probably should avoid automating, at least right away. In this case, we can see that in addition to the billing service, which is relatively uncomplicated, we can get a high gain from automating the address change process as well. And since Blue Prism Process Intelligence deploys multiple recorders on various users' desktops, Rachel can capture a representative sample of how different people do tasks. This means that we don't see just one happy path, but every path, including exception paths, resulting in automations that are much more resilient. Once we've selected the paths we want to include, we simply click the Export to Blue Prism button. Blue Prism Process Intelligence combines process mining and task mining to give the high-level view of a business process, as well as the granular details required to easily select and automate it. Next, we can import it into Blue Prism Capture, where we can optimize it for our digital workforce. For example, when Alex needs to change an address in 5 systems, he does it in one system at a time. Instead of doing each one sequentially the way a human would, 5 digital workers working in parallel could complete the task 5 times faster. Blue Prism Capture also includes additional recording functionality. This way, Rachel's team can consult a subject matter expert and make adjustments to the process as needed. Once ready, we can export it into the Blue Prism Design Studio as a skeleton, saving roughly 30% of the development time. In addition to optimizing the process for a digital worker and speeding up development, Blue Prism Capture also exports documentation that's used to help maintain proper governance. In order to finalize the automations, Rachel works with her company's Blue Prism Center of Excellence, who then import the release into the Design Studio. Blue Prism automations are broken up into 2 categories: processes, which contain the business logic, or what the digital worker is doing, and objects, which contain the application level logic, or how the digital worker does it. Here we see the skeleton we imported from Blue Prism Capture. The no-code flowchart-based interface is designed to be easy to use, looking similar to Microsoft Visio so business users can learn it quickly. When the business logic needs to interact with an application, such as the CRM system, it calls the object for that application. These objects are fully reusable, which means that once they're built, you can quickly build out more processes that use the same applications by just connecting the dots, if you will. In order to build out the objects, you first need to tell Blue Prism how to identify the individual elements of the application that you want to interact with. To look up an account number, for example, we need to identify the Locate button so the digital worker can press it. To do this, we simply open the application modeler, create a new element, and click Identify. Notice that as I move my mouse over the application, the different elements are outlined. After selecting the one I want, I can double check that it worked by clicking Highlight. Notice that the Locate button is again outlined. Since Blue Prism identifies elements based on the underlying code, as opposed to screen scraping, minor changes to the application or differences in screen resolution won't cause any issues. With the elements identified, it's time to use the flowchart to describe the action. First, I'll drag in a write stage to enter the account number, and then a navigate stage to press the Locate button. Opening the write stage, I simply tell it to enter the account number, encrypted as a password for security, into the search bar element. Opening the navigate stage, I similarly drag in the Locate button element and select Press as the action. Now all I have to do is link the pieces together, and we're ready to try this out. As we step through the object, we can see the corresponding actions being taken in the CRM. While this does work, we want to make it even more resilient before putting it into production. By following the best practice templates, we get something that looks like this. The main section in the middle remains the same, entering the value and then clicking Locate. But before we do that, we want to do some verification. First, we make sure that Blue Prism is attached to the correct application. Alex and other agents work with many different applications, so we need to be sure that the digital worker is looking at the right one. Next, we make sure the search bar is actually there. Digital workers can move through the application very quickly, so it's important to give them time to load before progressing. Otherwise, we could end up trying to click a button that doesn't exist yet. Unlike traditional recorder-based automations, which simply pause for the amount of time in the recording, Blue Prism will wait until the element is there and then immediately move on. This way we go as quickly as possible while still being highly resilient. If the element isn't detected after a set amount of time, Blue Prism will gracefully handle it instead of crashing, often restarting the application to try again. Finally, once we've completed the task, Blue Prism will use the intelligent wait again to confirm. In this case, we wait until the customer data loads. This way, we know if the action failed, so we can rectify it. All of these best practices, and many more regarding everything from how to set up a COE to proper documentation for your automations, are included in the Blue Prism Robotic Operating Model, or ROM. Blue Prism has been helping customers for over 20 years, and has codified that experience into the ROM to make sure customers like Rachel are successful. Blue Prism's no-code design studio makes it easy to build scalable, resilient automations, all while remaining compliant and highly secure. With the back-end processes now automated, we need to set up a user interface for Alex and the other call center agents to use. Since Blue Prism Service Assist lets the COE set this up entirely from within the Blue Prism Design Studio, they can use the tool they already know to build a UI quickly and without any coding. Here you see the UI on the left, with the BP process that controls it running on the right in debug mode for visibility. Pre-built objects are called to control different elements on the UI, and the included PS hours help make sure it's set up quickly and easily. Now when Alex has a call come in, digital workers are automatically triggered to pull the appropriate information as quickly as possible so we can greet the customer by name and personify the conversation. The customer 360-degree view shows all of the information Alex needs in a single pane of glass at his fingertips, saving him and other agents time previously spent navigating through multiple systems. And with the ability to have multiple digital workers swarm a task, working in parallel as mentioned earlier, average handle time can be improved dramatically. For example, one customer had Service Assist kick off up to 26 digital workers at a time, resulting in average handle time going from 9 minutes to just 2 minutes. All of the actions to be taken are available as simple tabs along the top of the screen, saving time by removing the need to work through different screens while the customer is on the line. Service Assist also has the ability to easily guide agents through more complex processes like loan applications in a step-by-step wizard-like approach, which will remove errors and ensure consistent, streamlined processes with quicker resolutions. Not only will this make your customers happier, but it also reduces the amount of training required for new agents. Finally, Blue Prism Service Assist can easily send confirmations to the customer through email or text before digital workers take on the post-call work, freeing Alex up to take the next call. Service Assist improves both the average handle time and the agent experience by combining digital worker swarming with a simplified user interface. In order to further streamline agent training, Rachel wants to have AI help predict the next best actions for them to take. Using Blue Prism Decision, her team can quickly set up and train a machine learning model. When creating the machine learning model, Rachel's SME Rob first gives it a name and a basic description to make it easier to find later on. Rob then defines what the outcome will look like, choosing between numerical or categorical. In this case, Rob chooses categorical, specifically whether or not to offer a new credit card. The ability to add custom values as well here yields tremendous versatility. Next, the variables are defined. Rob can add as many as he needs, but in this case he only needs 4. If the model proves inaccurate, Blue Prism Decision allows him to easily add more variables and retrain it later on. After he confirms, the model is built and ready to be trained. If certain variable values always result in a certain outcome, they can easily be set as a rule using the no-code interface. For example, if they've been a customer for under a year, they won't get a new card offer. The last thing we need before we can teach the model is just one example for each outcome. In this case, Rob sets 1 for yes and 1 for no. Now it's time for Rachel's SMEs, like Alex, to teach the model. Blue Prism Decision proposes various examples, and Alex chooses yes or no and creates samples. This is repeated just 20 times to give accurate results. After that, the roles are reversed to calibrate the model. Alex changes to variable values to see what answer Blue Prism Decision gives, correcting them as needed. The data points used to make each decision are shown below, since having an audit trail for how each decision is made is crucial for compliance. With compliance in mind, all the samples used to create and train the model can be viewed and the individual weightings can be changed, although most often that isn't required. And just like that, our machine learning model is ready to go. Back in the Blue Prism Design Studio, Rachel's Center of Excellence can now call the machine learning model the same way they would use any other Blue Prism object. The speed and ease of use for setting up custom ML models in Blue Prism Decision allows Rachel to quickly set up complex decisions, significantly reducing the amount of training her new agents required, just as hoped. If Rachel's team would rather use a different solution, Blue Prism also integrates with many best-of-breed artificial intelligence and machine learning partners through its extensive Technology Alliance Partner program. With the automated solution now in production, we can use Blue Prism Process Intelligence again to examine the outcomes. Here we can see that the automation has taken the bottleneck from earlier from about 9 minutes down to only 2, resulting in massive average handle time reductions. In order to monitor both the digital workers and the larger processes they're a part of, Rachel can use Blue Prism Process Intelligence's behavior queries. Process queries can be defined graphically without any coding or scripting, democratizing their use. Similarly, we can use the forecast tool to set up custom machine learning models to predict outcomes before they happen. Custom alerts can be triggered by these queries and forecasts, and can even directly trigger Blue Prism digital workers. This means that digital workers can dynamically be added to jobs to make sure SLAs are hit. In just a short amount of time, and without any coding, Rachel's project is up and running. Using Blue Prism Process Intelligence, her team quickly identified what processes should be automated, and the integration with Blue Prism Capture cut the development time by 30%. Best practices in the robotic operating model ensured her automations would be highly resilient and secure, while also reusable and scalable. Blue Prism Service Assist then drastically reduced average handle time by having digital workers swarm any task for agents, all while cutting training time by giving them a single pane of glass to view all necessary data and Blue Prism Decision to predict next best actions. Finally, the monitoring and predictive capabilities of Blue Prism Process Intelligence not only ensure that SLAs and compliance regulations are met, but also provide the metrics she needs, such as average handle time going from 9 minutes to 4 minutes, and the cost being cut in half. Talk to your Blue Prism rep to find out what you can achieve with the combined power of the Blue Prism Intelligent Automation Platform.
Hi guys, it's Kashil here. So I guess what John showed you earlier was just a demonstration of each of the product components. You've just seen the product work together as an entire platform. I'm not sure how you want to play this. We have some refreshments, or if you'd want to dive straight into the energy discussion, but there are some refreshments outside, I think. Yeah? So if you want to take a break, if you have a few questions, we now have an understanding of the platform, the proposition, the product portfolio, and we're going to dive a bit deeper into use cases and the energy sector after the refreshments break. But if you have any questions, no? Okay, so should we take a, sorry? Okay. John, should we just carry on into the next sector then? I think it makes sense.
Cheers. basically look at automation. Now, I'm not an energy expert, but we have got friends in high places who are energy experts. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reference the opportunities to use intelligent automation using IDC and the survey that they conducted across the energy and utilities market. And so what they put together was a little help for us, because we actually asked them, what should we be doing in order to help energy businesses? And they then said, well, first of all, you really need to understand what's going on in this industry. And so they gave us this kind of analysis. A thing about utilities is it's one of those types of industries that has really been undergoing a huge amount of change. You might actually call it tectonic change. This hasn't really been much of a, let's say, a surprise to people. I recently came back from the US, having spent a holiday there, and I also drive a lot around Europe. And it's just amazing to see, just on the generation capabilities, the wide range across the world of the way that people think about utilities and resources. So, for example, in the US, they all drive around in V12 cars, typically all petrol-based. And so when I asked the question to one of my friends in America, I said, well, why are you driving around in a V12, where clearly a V6 is good enough? You don't need a V12. Right? You just don't. 5 litres, 6 litres, guzzling at 10 miles per gallon or something like that. And yeah, fair enough. They've got their own oil, and they dig it up, and they frack, and they do all sorts of wonderful things. Then, if you wander around the UK, you'll see fields and fields of solar panels, absolutely masses of solar panels in fields, all connected up to the grid. You go around France, you won't see so many fields of solar panels, but you'll see turbines. And then if you go into the North Sea and the sea between us and Ireland, masses and masses of turbines. And like I said, go drive through France, masses of turbines. So clearly, things are really different around the world. And the sort of prices of things are actually really interesting. In Australia, for example, solar panels are so cheap. They've been able to be essentially off-grid for some time. So, we know that there are real changes in the energy and the utilities marketplace. We all know about having to increase our capacity to try and get down to net zero as well. So there have been a huge amount of changes in this industry, but there's a couple of interesting things about these forces. The demand for sustainability is obviously really, really important there, but there's expectations of your customers that are truly evolving. Now, we had a conversation this morning around the expectations of service is even in the banking sector is getting much more a heavier demand. Retailers are showing us the way, especially around how they deal not just with e-commerce, but how we can now order on our mobile, continuing ordering on our phones, and then on our web screens, and then going to the stores, and then pick up or carry on doing our shopping, etc., etc. Yeah, there's so many different ways of being able to manage customers and their expectations. And we need to be able to follow that in utilities just as well. So we need to learn from this kind of omni-channel experience. But we also recognize that there is an obsolescence in the asset base as well, both in terms of networks and in plants. And of course, then we also recognize this isn't simply about transforming customer journey or improving our assets. I mean, it's also around the changing dimensions in the workforce you know, the expectations of individuals, especially youngsters who are coming into the workforce, not necessarily using the same equipment that we've been using for the last 20 years. And so then IDC sort of put this into what they call a 3D utility model. So this isn't, like I say, anything to do with us. This is what IDC have talked about, where the first D is to talk about digital, where digital technology can be used to not so much digitize old processes, but to first get operational excellence. Second, to define the customer experience and live up to the expectations of the modern digital customer. And then obviously finally, to change what they do, developing new and sustainable digital-enabled business models. So the second is divergent, which is all about supporting business and operation model change, transitioning from a state where utilities are all the same to one where one utility can differentiate itself from the next. Actually, you know, providing customers with the value of your brand, as opposed to simply just looking the same as any other utilities. And then finally, decentralization. You know, and what this is all about is reflecting the way that we are, as a sort of generation, as a community, moving away from centralized generation and supply to much more of where consumers themselves are actively participating and are much more, you know, involved in this sustainable generation and storage. So this translates into 5 business strategic priorities in IDC's view. This is not what we're saying, this is what they're saying. So what I'm going to try and do is to kind of link this to, well, what are the opportunities in these 5 strategic priorities for intelligent automation and Blue Prism in particular. So the first let's go into is customer experience redefined. So here, we're kind of really thinking that redefining customer experience is moving away from a process-centric kind of business to much more of a customer-centric business. And this is the kind of key takeaway, that these digital channels that we need to put in place actually are much more, you know, about customer and customer convenience. And this is something which we really need to pick up on. So when we've seen this, when utilities businesses change change to digital channels, they get much more engagement with customers. So actually understanding these customer journeys, you know, is really a really important thing as part of, you know, so what we talked about earlier in terms of finding journeys and actually then digitizing those. That's a really important thing to do. And here's a survey that they put together, IDC, actually showing that moving away from being a process-centric organization to a customer-centric business, it means prioritizing convenience, value for money, and personalization. And that's an important thing. If you start to get much more engaged when things are provided you personally rather than, you know, globally, as it were. And you know what you'll see here is this this survey, which do you think is the most popular impact in improving customer service, and it is around convenience. And this is actually asked of utility businesses. So let's move on to, well, what's the opportunity for Blue Prism? So with, for example, you saw in that video our product called Service Assist. You know, what we're able to do here is completely, with Service Assist, transform these journeys. You know, on this customer, and as a result of that, you're going to find, first of all, an improvement in customer satisfaction. And then if you're improving customer satisfaction or Net Promoter Score, whichever one you want to think about there, you're going to improve customer retention. You're not going to lose those customers. Yeah, so essentially what we can do is introduce you to Service Assist, and it doesn't necessarily need to be Service Assist. It could well be just using Interact within a contact center really does actually help do that. But Service Assist, one of its important things isn't simply about improving your AHT, but actually by taking out some of the complexity in that call center, you're going to find things like first call resolution, or as it's written down here, first time resolution, actually improve as well. Right? So that means to say that there's going to be less handoffs to your back office, because typically, you know, it's the back office in the contact center that does the work that the contact center front office just took the request for. By throwing in Service Assist with these digital workers doing the complex processes, you're going to get much more, higher first call resolution. Furthermore, if you then start to think of digital channels, then you're going to avoid getting some of those calls in the first place, right? So call avoidance is a typical thing around contact centers, where if you provide a self-service capability, either through an app or through a website that's mobile friendly, or a website that's just a website, or indeed you start going into chatbot technologies, you're going to find that is absolutely increased and improved around the avoidance of calls in your contact center. Now, we've got 4 companies that are doing this, here, GoTo, NG, Hearts Energy, and Uniper. And as you can just see, some of these things, some of these numbers, they're high percentage numbers. You know, they're good amounts of really interesting propositions that our customers have actually put in place. So don't think, if it's all around customer experience, that you'll be the first to do it, because you won't. Okay, let's take the second one, Intelligent Enterprise. So Intelligent Enterprise is a little bit like what Kushil talks about when he talks about reinventing your business model. Because, you know, what you're trying to do is to reinvent this model so that you are resilient. In other words, you can suffer if there are issues to do with either your network, with your customers, with your aging computer systems and so forth. Yeah, and what we're also trying to do is to embrace sustainability on every level as well. You know, and obviously with the recovery after, actually, you know, the recovery pace will vary across regions. You know, obviously we've got some other concerning issues like, you know, the Ukraine war, the pipelines being blown up, and then, you know, arguments between the Spanish and the French about pipelines and things like that. You know, these are all, these are all, if you like, business models that we need to first of all understand the impact, and then build sustainable business models to overcome them, essentially re-architecting your core business models. And you know, what we find is utilities businesses really need to reconsider their business portfolio options, you know, especially with this new market environment, for selling assets that no longer fit those developing new ecosystems. Utilities obviously will also need to accelerate to these fully fledged digital operations. And one of the things around what we're trying to aim for here is this word operational excellence, or the 2 words, operational excellence. Sometimes they're just really, you know, misunderstood, but that's what we're trying to provide you, the ability to be as excellent and as sleek in your operations as you possibly can, and actually using data rather than, let's say, conjecture around how your operations are working, because you can't argue with data. You know, data is there, and you know, it's there for a reason. So let's make use of it. And who's, you know, so the options here, the opportunities here, is examining your process. Use Blue Prism Process Intelligence. You get it, by the way, for free. A starter pack you get for free when you buy Blue Prism with support. And then you can better understand what processes you actually have. There you go. Straight away, you've got a product for free that does that. At least it's a starter pack. Furthermore, obviously, the pandemic has meant that we have a lot more remote working as a result. But, you know, even with something like Service Assist, you can enable your human workforce to better work remotely as well. Maybe even then down to some of your operating centers being able to work much more remotely. And that really plays to this whole kind of idea of building an intelligent automation or an intelligent enterprise. And then, who's doing this? Well, there's a long list. I'm not going to read all of these out, but you can see that there's a massive list of people. So, utilities is actually a very strong area for us in the US, in the UK, in France, and we've got a long list of people actually reinventing their enterprise using Blue Prism. So there's two digitals here: the digital networks and digital plants. So on this side, we're really talking about the utilities, the networks you've got, the grids, the pipelines, that sort of thing. They've been going on for decades, haven't they? And now, so because these assets are essentially aging, they are linear, and of course they go through these vast places as well. Much of them underground. That we find that a lot of the case. I mean, like I said, on this US visit, I was astounded to see all these electricity cables actually on like telegraph poles made of wood. So you know what? And they've all got a transformer at the top, and these telegraph poles are essentially bending over. So I don't know how the Americans actually managed to have any security of electricity supply, because you've got these things that look like they're going to fall down every 2 minutes, whereas obviously in Europe, pretty much everything's underground, or if it's not and you've got some overground stuff, they're much chunkier and thicker and made of metal or concrete or something. It's very strange. But the point about this is that the option you've now got is to be able to, in IDC's view, start to really use some interesting new technologies on the edge of on what we call edge computing, things like the Internet of Things on edge computing, maybe even using AI. I mean, we've even got one example put together for us by IBM of a drone, and we all know what drones look like these days, resulting thanks to Ukraine and Russia for showing us, but taking pictures of a gas pipeline, and actually all of the interconnections in that gas pipeline, and then sending those off to a Blue Prism digital worker on an email as it's actually flying. Right? So then we get a digital worker going through a load of attachments, JPEGs, and then sending those off to a specialized piece of IBM Watson that then analyzes those pictures, those interchanges, and then decides if they need to be repaired. If they do need to be repaired, do you know what? They're going to immediately create a ServiceNow ticket, and with the GPS locations of that interchange, and then obviously ServiceNow is going to optimize which engineer actually goes out. Previously that would have cost thousands and thousands, whereas a drone clearly doesn't cost a huge amount of money. But it's an example of where you can combine AI and some automation to really drive value. So just one example there. What we're seeing is the increasing role of residential customers as well. In France, I actually have a solar panel on the roof of my house, and what we're seeing there is the reverse of generators not being centralized but being decentralized, and so really what you want is to be able to understand and plan for these additional sources of supply. How's that actually all going to work, the way that I distribute my energy around the place? And that's something that's, we can absolutely use automation to really help with. So then, let's look at some of the use cases. You can manage all of these disparate components of your complex infrastructure. You can augment your existing processes using AI. And also when it comes to inspection and assessment of the infrastructure, you can do that through automation. And who's doing that? Well, here we've got United Utilities that use AI for fault detection and resolution to perform more predictive work. After all, we're going to want to be able to predict when things go wrong rather than wait for them to go wrong. And then Utilita as well, supporting the rollout of smart meters for scheduling and so forth. So, but what about these digital plants then? Let me just go back one. What about these digital plants then? So these plants are getting much older. They're getting susceptible to wear and tear. they're also being put under pressure as well, let alone by some of the things that we hear going on in Ukraine. But they're being impacted by new types of plants, much smaller and much largely unpredictable. And these distributed energy sources are really coming online all the time. Many countries have prioritized these clean energy sources when it comes to accepting power into the grid, which means that we call these the traditional plants are the ones that are aging and need to be much more flexible and faster in responding to the market signals to scale up their production and to scale down their production. This requires making them more resilient. And of course, you've heard resiliency as one of the things. So what we talk about in terms of resiliency is using digital techniques to not just look after our network, but to look after our plant operations as well. And really helping expand that flexibility that you're going to need when it comes to those assets. And you're going to do this through gathering data. So essentially, by gathering data around your business, around the plants themselves, you're going to be able to drive an intelligent assessment based on the data itself. And this is kind of almost a little bit boring, because this is like saying, look, I've got data that's coming out of my plants, and so long as it's clean data, I can then do some intelligent analysis on it. But then what do I do when I've done that intelligent analysis? I need to act on the intelligence that I'm getting from the data. So where IA, intelligent automation, can be used is, first of all, to clean the data that's coming in. So to clean the data that's coming into your, let's say, data warehouse, data lake, or whatever you call it these days, and actually then allow the data lake to make those decisions, so that then what decisions were you going to make? Well, I'm going to make a decision to act. I'm not just going to make a decision, but I need to act. So that's where, again, intelligent automation can then take the results of your analyses and actually then put them into action, be that a customer action, or be that a distribution action, a switching action, or control room action. These are all the kind of things that you can actually do with automation. And here's some further examples. Again, by IDC, who surveyed, saying utilities will be digitally connected to 75% of their critical assets in order for them to be able to predict and then obviously prevent equipment failure. And we also know that there are some interesting things going on in this area around wearables, and about being able to use artificial intelligence to actually see the assets as you are repairing them, to get information from your chief engineer and so forth. Again, robotics and Blue Prism robotics themselves hold a role in that as well. So then, embracing RPA, advanced analytics, and artificial intelligence, it means that you can start to look at driving towards those climate change goals. That's really what we're trying to help you out with here. Combining AI and machine learning together with our digital workers can actually really help with that as well. So AI and machine learning does not need to be like a dark art for you ever again. Using Blue Prism, you can begin to start to drive changes. And so who's doing this? Well, one of our customers over in the US, they're preventing wildfires by using this sensor-type data along with satellite weather warning to ensure distributions are maintained. I've got another example outside of energy, but one of our customers in France, it's an insurance company in France, actually look at the weather predictions for when there's a hailstorm. Now, hailstorms in Germany tend to be the size of golf balls. They get to be that size. And actually what they do is they predict where these paths of these golf balls are going to be coming down. And you know what? They then send messages to the people who are actually customers in the path of that storm, saying, put your cars underneath cover, because when you've seen a hailstormed car, you'll realize that, first of all, obviously the windows are all smashed, and then secondly, the bodywork is completely knackered, and it takes a lot to recover that from an insurance point of view. So then we go on to our last strategic priority, hybrid models. And in a way, I've kind of talked about this as well already around what is the role of humans, what's the role of rules and bots and artificial intelligence. So essentially what we're trying to do here is reinvent work so that humans can do the work that humans do best, and digital workers can do the work that digital workers or robots can do best. And that's really where we're trying to reset and redefine what the model for humans and digital workers looks like. And we talked about wearables, AI, and so forth. This is what IDC are saying is actually going to really be the future of work. A future of work with an operating model that's fosters human and machine collaboration. That's really what we're talking about, human and machine. So what you want to do is to look at where you can use automation to improve your employee experience as much as it can improve your customer experience, and as I've said already, your supplier experience as well. This survey was interesting. Who's actually, is your organization deploying or planning to deploy any of the following technologies to automate business tasks and processes, to augment manual work? And what they're saying is, yes, we are. Workflow automation is the thing that we are actually looking for. Digital assistants, that's the next thing. Then wearables and virtual reality and so forth further down there. And even process intelligence software, 52% makes it into this list. I would say, process intelligence software and workflow go together. So, if you're considering these things, that's what other utilities customers are actually doing. And so what is the top priority here? So the top priority, as you can see, the automation priority is first of all for IT, right? So IT needs to be automated. Well, who knew that? Because clearly, customer operations needs to be automated, as well as finance. So this gives you an idea about what other people are actually looking at in terms of the automation potential. So let me just move on to this. This slide here is probably the summary slide that you'll need to look at, because it lists all of those different strategic priorities that the IDC talks about, and then in the grid there, your opportunity to actually look at each one of these areas and see how intelligent automation can actually then benefit you. So that's all I've got to talk to you about. Clearly, what I've tried to do there is to base the opportunity you have to automate based around what IDC are telling us are the strategic priorities in the utilities business. So please take that with that in mind, that you can go away and say, yes, we have got an opportunity to use Blue Prism, and we've got with DKBS a business that can really help us out in understanding out of that list who to actually go with first. Thank you for your time. Any questions then? Well, I think we'll all go outside there and have a little drink.
Today, work means doing many different tasks, reading emails, creating spreadsheets, and even using that irreplaceable 20-year-old program. It's a lot of work, and not all of it uses the skills that make us, well, human, like creativity, critical thinking, and communication. So why not automate those repetitive tasks and focus instead on the high-value, great work we're meant to do? At Blue Prism, we're making automation smarter through the use of our digital workforce. That means you don't need to change the systems you're already using or worry about integrating with the new program IT recently adopted. A Blue Prism digital workforce can handle it all. In building automations, that's easy. There's no coding required. As a business user, you just drag, drop, and build flowcharts. The best part? It's all centrally managed, so your business teams can seamlessly collaborate, share automations, and build on each other's work. And the digital workers can help each other out when they see that their virtual colleagues are busy on other tasks. And IT can be sure it's governed, safe, secure, and ready to scale. Each side of the operation focusing on what they do best. Let's look at a simple example. Every business needs to fulfill customer orders. With Blue Prism, this task, including all the clicks, logins, and decisions, can be completely automated and in turn transformed. Digital workers can read the incoming orders, use your internal inventory system, check in with human teammates if needed, and of course, use SAP to finalize the order, Salesforce to update customer information, and Outlook to send order confirmation emails. Teaming up with a digital workforce that can handle these tasks puts you on the fastest path to value and gives your people back the time they need to do what only they can. Deliver outstanding customer service, build relationships, be creative, and tap into the best practices to grow the business. The world's largest organizations choose Blue Prism so they can explore new possibilities and do more great work. What will you automate?
Running a business isn't easy, but with automation, it can be made much simpler. With Blue Prism, intelligent automation is just a click away for your entire organization. As the operating system for business, Blue Prism is transforming the way you work, seamlessly mixing human and digital workers and freeing people from mundane tasks. From recording workflows and generating process definition documents with Blue Prism Capture, to discovering new automated opportunities that weren't previously thought possible. You can put the power of automation into the hands of your people with no technical experience required. Blue Prism's digital workers harness leading AI and machine learning technologies using optical character recognition and NLP to process complex, unstructured information. And with Blue Prism Digital Exchange, you can even drag and drop pre-built automations to save your workforce hundreds of thousands of hours in just a few clicks.